But at 9 minutes past 9, let us turn our attention to a fairly precious piece of land. This is the land that's bordered by Sturt Road, Marion Road, South Road. A lot of you would know it as Lapis Triangle. Other people would know it as Warraparinga. And it's already got quite a bit of property built up there, but it's also wetlands. And there were plans for an Aboriginal elders village to be built there. And then comes the news that a significant portion of that land is going to be sold off, perhaps for a major hardware store, food chains and car parking. So what will that look like? Kris Hanna is the City of Marion Mayor, and he joins us now. We appreciate him making himself available this morning. Good morning, Kris Hanna.
Good morning, David.
Can you tell us, with so much already built there or set up there, and these wetlands, and there's an Indigenous appreciation centre there. I've been shown around the area with my family by one of the elders, and it really is quite. It's really nice there, what's been done. Can you explain to us, what will this eventually look like if some of that land is sold off for a Bunnings and a car park?
Well, yes, I think I can. So we're talking about the triangle bounded by South Road, Marion and Sturt Road, in a sense behind the Sturt Police Station. And then we're coming to the Marion Road frontage between some wetlands on the corner next to Sturt Road and Hungry Jack's on the South Road corner at the other end. So there's a big flat area in between, and it was owned by the Indigenous Land and Sea Corporation, and they've, I gather, sold it off to Troon Group, TROON, a Victorian developer, and they're developing the site. We have had an application lodged for 40 units, which is intended for elderly Aboriginal people to live in, or they may be people visiting Aboriginal people in Flinders Medical Centre, for example. They might stay there for a period of time. That's yet to be determined. But certainly we have had a planning application come in, and that's currently being assessed by the Marion Council planners. There's also an application for a land subdivision, so this is not unusual in these cases, where it's a very big stretch of land that the Land and Sea Corporation had, about nearly 6 hectares, so quite big. It's not unusual that they would divide off the area where they have a specific use for these elderly people to live in, and the rest of it, I gather the intention of the developer is to put bulky goods, commercial and the like. Now, Marion Council hasn't seen any specific plan for that, so that's yet to be determined. Certainly, Marion Council has written a letter to the developer saying, look, one thing we don't want is another petrol station. We don't need that. And the other element that we're really quite adamant about is that we want to protect that pathway alongside the river. As you were alluding to, David, the Sturt River runs through that triangle from the gorge on the eastern side of South Road and winds its way down towards the sea. So it's a beautiful environment, lots of native vegetation, old gum trees, a very significant Kaurna campsite it was, and we still respect the Kaurna for that connection. So that's about as much as I know. We're waiting to see what the developer does in terms of a proposal for bulky goods, etc. Now, I know there are some people, probably friends of Warraparinga and others, who would prefer to have no more building on that triangle. But the fact is that the Indigenous Land and Sea Corporation had it. They've sold it on, as I understand it, whatever arrangement they might have with the Troon Group. And Troon will develop it, no doubt, for what they think is the best development they can do.
Right. So in terms of who owns that parcel of land that is going to be commercially developed, that's no longer the Indigenous Land and Sea Corporation. They've lost control of that portion of the land.
That is certainly the intention. Look, I haven't checked the Land Titles Office, but there has been an agreement put in place between ILSC and the Troon Group, and the intention is for Troon Group to develop it. That much is clear.
Right, and is the Troon Group doing both the commercial bulky goods development and the aged care home? They're doing the lot?
I think their focus is the bulky goods and the commercial.
Right.
So,
okay.
Again, this is a developing situation, you could say.
Right.
So I'm not sure, who exactly is going to build the 40 units, for example.
Yeah.
And that's all subject to approval. The planning hasn't been assessed. It may go through. It may require amendment. That is truly out of the hands of elected members at the moment. We have a planning person at council who's no doubt going through all the fine detail of that right as we speak.
Okay. For people who aren't familiar with that part of Marion Road and heading further north, there is quite a lot of commercial development there. In fact, I think the Marion Council have their depots there as well. But that portion between Sturt Road and South Road, with the wetlands there and those really mature gums, there's a caravan park there as well. There might have been an expectation from the community that we could do something special with the remaining land. Now, I know a lot of the remaining land had to be used while the Darlington project was going on, so there was really heavy equipment there. I think some of those bridges might have actually been constructed on that site and then pushed into place. But once all that was done, there might have been an expectation from your ratepayers, Kris, Hanna, that, well, why can't we have something nice? I mean, really nice. Not just another
David,
bulky goods store and a car park.
Well, indeed. I know that myself, some of the councillors muttered about such a possibility, but there's no way Marion Council could compete with commercial developers on the open market for a block of land like that. It would have hit too much of a dent to the ratepayers' pockets if we simply kept it as open space. So it's a shame in that respect. But all we can do now is try and preserve that corridor along the river so that it's still a beautiful place to walk. And incidentally, can I throw in there that I had the opportunity to show around Her Excellency the Governor just a few days ago. We did the walk, the loop around the river, and she appreciated the environment very much.
Yeah. Well, okay. So maybe it's a missed opportunity. We're getting texts saying, do we really need another hardware store? Because there's one at Marion already. Bunnings have got another big one that they only built a few years ago on South Road. And look, they're a commercial operation. And people who, once you've sold the land to commercial operators, they're allowed to turn a dollar. But I suppose we look to government, state, local, federal to give us a bigger picture. And maybe something could have been done there that would just fill up the gap between Sturt Road, Marion Road, South Road, with something a little more inspirational than a hardware store and a car park. But that's gone.
Yes, well, I mean, Indigenous Land and Sea Corporation no doubt considered the sensitivity of the area to Kaurna people. It was a very significant campsite. At the very least, there will need to be Kaurna people monitoring the digging in that area because there's no doubt there would be remnants of the campsite and the life of Kaurna people there for, I don't know, thousands of years before Europeans came along. And I know that because that was the experience in building that bit of the Southern Expressway that crosses over that triangle as well. They had monitors there and certainly found materials, bits and pieces as they were preparing for Southern Expressway. So it'll be similar sort of ground, I would expect.
And what's the timetable here? When will this?
Well, it's very much in the hands of the developer. So, with the elderly Aboriginal units that's being assessed, I mean, if they get approval sometime later this year, they might be building. They could be building that next year, but I don't control that. We don't know that.
No, and as you say, it's the council's only got so many resources, and the land was sold. But I can also understand why the Indigenous Land and Sea Corporation sold what they had, because they can use those funds to build the aged care home. It makes sense. People need.
Well,
they need that facility.
Back to money.
Yeah, it comes back to money. Let's go to Jeffrey Newchurch. He is chairperson of the Ghana Yurta Aboriginal Corporation. Good morning, Jeffrey Newchurch.
Good morning, Dave.
What do you make of all this? Is this the best outcome